All know that game by game is a game of adjustments. He has to play better. You are the guy. This is your city. We are in the NBA Finals. You have to play better. And one
Shaq O'Neal went on live TV and asked a massive question. Does Victor Wembanyama actually have that killer instinct? You know, that extra edge you need when the game is on the line? He basically attacked his toughness, his mindset, and his whole character. But look at how Wembanyama reacted. The very next night, he didn't run to social media. He didn't tweet and he didn't complain. Instead, he answered the only way a true player does. Right there on the court with the whole world watching. So, what do you think? Drop a comment below. Is Shaq making a good point here, or is he just taking personal shots now? Personally, I think Shaq is right. But let's look at his exact words first, because context is everything.
Give me your take on Wemby and how, this is one of those games where afterwards he was like, I didn't play my kind of game. He and Brunson both said, that they.
We all know that game by game is a game of adjustments. He has to play better. You are the guy. This is your city. We are in the NBA Finals. You have to play better. And when we have to play better.
It all started during a post-game show on national TV. Shaquille O'Neal looked straight into the camera and openly questioned Wembanyama. He asked if the young star really has that killer instinct to win when the pressure is at its highest. Shaq pointed right at the stat sheet, 6 for 21 shooting with 10 missed three-pointers. Then he said, "That is not going to get it done." According to Shaq, Wembanyama needs to make serious adjustments both on the court and in his head. He made it clear. The Spurs simply cannot afford to lose games like this. But the real story was how Shaq said it. He had that classic Shaq energy, a little half-smile leaning back and laughing quietly. He made it look like he wasn't even taking it seriously, even though he was tearing down the core of a young player's drive.
He has to set the tone, especially against Karl-Anthony Towns. When Karl-Anthony Towns was guarding him, he was 2 for 12. He's not getting doubled and triple like Chuck and I got. This is a one-on-one matchup. Kenny made the great point. We don't want you shooting three-pointers. We want you putting your shoulder down and playing the...
Look, let's be honest about that 6 of 21 shooting night. It was bad. No one can defend that. And seeing a 7'4" guy take 10 three-pointers when he's literally unstoppable near the basket? That's a totally fair point to call out. If Shaq had just stopped there, it would have been great analysis. If he just talked about shot selection and how Wembanyama needs to crush teams inside instead of settling for outside shots, everyone would agree. That's exactly what a Hall of Fame big man should be talking about. Shaq lived in the paint and dominated there for 20 years. So when he talks about shot selection, he knows his stuff. That part of his critique makes total sense, and it's actually based on real basketball.
Chuck don't think he can play aggressive, but he better play aggressive tonight because they need this win.
He can play aggressive. I'm just saying that's not his personality.
He better be aggressive tonight, and he better set that tone, and
I'll tell you
better play well tonight.
But Shaq didn't stop there. And that's exactly where this stops being about basketball and turns into something else. It's all about the pattern. People who closely follow the Spurs know this wasn't just a one-off comment. Shaq has been using this exact same tone for the past month. This isn't just a legend reacting to one bad game. This is a non-stop attack from one of the loudest and most powerful voices in sports media. Look at what he's actually going after. He's not breaking down footwork. He's not talking about defense or pointing out fixable mistakes on tape. He's questioning Wembanyama's mind, his toughness, whether he disappears when the pressure is on. It's the stuff you can't find on a stat sheet. It's his character. When you publicly target a player's character over and over, that's not analysis anymore. That's building a narrative on purpose. Let's look at how this all started because the build-up explains everything.
With the first pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Victor Wembanyama from Nanterre, France.
The second Wembanyama went number 1 overall, the basketball world did what it always does with a generational talent. Everything just got way louder. People instantly started looking for comparisons. With his massive size and his huge impact on both ends of the floor, everyone landed on one name fast: Shaquille O'Neal. Now, it's not because they play alike. Nobody plays like Wembanyama. Nobody moves like that or blocks shots from impossible angles. It was about the feeling he creates. That same, this shouldn't even be possible energy that Shaq brought when he dominated the league. It felt like the game let in a player who didn't have to follow the normal rules. Shaq heard all those comparisons. First, he brushed them off and kept it light. A joke here, a little charm there. But the comparisons didn't stop. Wembanyama just kept stacking up crazy moments, making the hype even louder. And somewhere along the line, something changed. The jokes got a little sharp. Tone got tense. Stopped sounding like an NBA legend who is secure with his legacy, and started sounding like someone who felt the need to remind everyone exactly who he is. Then came the stat breakdown phase. And this is where Shaq got really clever. See, he doesn't attack Wembanyama's numbers directly. He can't, those stats speak for themselves. Instead, he went after everything around the numbers. What do those stats look like against the best teams? What happens in the fourth quarter when the game slows down? What about on the road in a hostile arena? That's not random criticism. That's calculated. Doesn't deny what Wembanyama is doing, but it makes people second-guess it. Shaq has been in the media game for decades. He knows exactly how planting a tiny bit of doubt at the right moment can spread and completely change how we talk about a player.
I'm still very blurry, and that's the whole problem. You know, I need to have more poise, more control over the game. I'm not going to go through the whole positions, but that's the general.
And that's where things started getting blurry. It wasn't clear anymore.
Was that just the last three possessions, or was that sort of the issue all night?
Was that just a problem in the last three possessions, or was that basically the issue all night long?
I would say the last three possessions. I think we need to put ourselves in better conditions. We're digging ourselves a hole.
Then came last week, and things really took a turn. Wembanyama hit a rough patch. Back-to-back road games, almost zero rest, playing against some of the toughest big men in the league. For a few days, he just didn't look like himself. Now, any honest analyst knows the truth here. Every single great player goes through slumps. No exceptions. It's an 82-game season. And you expected even more from a young guy who is still growing into his body and figuring out the NBA. A fair analyst points it out, keeps it in perspective, and moves on. Shaq didn't do that. He took that tiny window of bad games and turned the volume all the way up. He went on TV and made it sound like this rough patch exposed Wembanyama's true self. He made it seem like the player who cruises through easy wins suddenly shrinks when the lights get bright. And that's the exact moment this stopped being about his performance and became an attack on who he is as a person.
First of all, as a leader, you should probably say, it's on me, but don't say things are blurry. If I'm anybody on the New York Knicks, I'm coming at his head on Monday. I don't even know what it means, but it sounds like he's, like Chuck said, like he's flustered. And you can't be flustered at this. I know you're down 0-2, but listen, as that guy on that team, you just got to step up.
Timing wasn't a coincidence. The words weren't an accident. Shaq picked the exact moment when Wembanyama looked vulnerable to drop a narrative that could follow him for years, whether it's true or not. That's how narratives work. Once you plant them, they grow, they spread, and soon enough, people start treating them like facts. But here's what Shaq might have miscalculated: who he was actually dealing with. Victor Wembanyama doesn't react like most players. He's not jumping on social media. He's not calling reporters to defend himself or chasing cameras to win a public argument. That's just not how he operates. Keeps everything inside. He takes the criticism, pours it into his work, and lets his game do the talking. That's been his blueprint from day one in France, in the G League, and now in San Antonio. No noise, no distractions, just basketball. So when people expected a response, they got one. It just wasn't the kind they're used to seeing. Let's break down what actually happened the next night, because most people are going to tell this story completely wrong. They're going to focus on the surface and miss what actually mattered. For Wembanyama, this wasn't just another game. It was a massive test. The Spurs were on the road in a hostile arena. Every possession felt heavy. From the opening minutes, you could tell it wasn't going to be easy. Every single bucket had to be earned the hard way. The defense was completely locked in on him, building their entire game plan around taking away his strengths. Paint was packed every time he touched the ball, and the defense was aggressive, fast, and physical. They were daring him to settle for tough, forced outside shots under pressure. For a while it worked. In the first half, things looked really uncomfortable. This was exactly the kind of moment where Shaq's narrative was supposed to come alive. A tough environment, tight defense, and rising pressure. This is where the critics said Wembanyama would disappear. But that's not what happened. And here's what most people missed. In the third quarter, when the game started slipping away and the crowd got louder, Wembanyama made a choice. You could see it instantly. He didn't start forcing shots, and he didn't panic or try to play hero ball. Instead, he just made his presence bigger. He got more physical down low, fought harder for position, and demanded the ball in spots where the defense couldn't ignore him. He became a real problem for them without forcing the issue. Then, everything shifted on the defensive end. 2 back-to-back plays changed the entire game. First, a perfectly timed chase-down block that stopped an easy score. Then, right after, a clean help-side rotation that erased a wide-open layup. Those plays didn't make the flashy highlight reels on social media, but those were the exact moments that flipped the momentum. That's what showing up at the highest level actually looks like. No talking. No arguing. Just delivering when the pressure hits, right in the situation your biggest critics said you would fade. Now, let's be fair, because this isn't just about picking a side. There is some real truth underneath what Shaq has been saying. Shaq wasn't just physically dominant during his career. His mindset was on another level. He was relentless and intense. Every bit of doubt or criticism was just fuel to his fire. That edge, that constant need to prove something, is what built his legacy. For championships and 15 All-Star selections don't come from size and strength alone. Came from something deep inside. And that is the standard he is measuring Wembanyama against, whether people agree with it or not. What Shaq seems to be looking for, in his own intense way, is whether that same fire lives inside Wembanyama. Honestly, that's a fair question. It's not crazy. Something Spurs fans, executives, and serious analysts are all quietly wondering. Can Wembanyama tap into that cold-blooded mode? That moment when the game is tight, under 2 minutes left, and it all comes down to one player deciding the outcome? Personally, I think so. The honest answer is yes. But it's still forming. What we saw the next night wasn't the finished version of a killer instinct. It was the early stages, the foundation being built in real time. The key wasn't that he dominated, it was that he chose not to fade when things got uncomfortable. When the pressure came, he expanded instead of shrinking. That's the starting point for everything Shaq has been questioning. Turning that into a consistent takeover mentality just takes time, repetition, and going through those moments until it becomes automatic. Plus, there's a layer here almost nobody is talking about, and it matters more than people realize. Wembanyama didn't grow up in the same system as most NBA stars. His background is completely different. Coming up in France, the basketball culture isn't like the American AAU pipeline that produces most superstars. The way he handles pressure, shows intensity, and competes doesn't look like what American fans are used to seeing. It's quieter, more controlled, and internal. 'Cause of that, people misread him. They're expecting loud reactions, visible emotion, and dramatic moments.
They are used to Kobe's stare-downs and LeBron's expressions and big sound.
They are used to Kobe's stare-downs, LeBron's expressions, and big sound bites. That is the lens they are using. But Wembanyama does not operate like that, and it does not mean he lacks anything. It means people are judging him with the wrong blueprint. Shaq, whether intentionally or not, is applying a very specific version of leadership, the dominant vocal alpha style, to a player who plays by completely different rules. And the twist nobody is saying is that the difference might actually be Wembanyama's advantage. The fact that he does not follow that mold could make him even harder to figure out and even harder to stop. Now let's talk about what Wembanyama actually needs to improve, because vague takes do not help anyone. The biggest area is late-game execution. For most of the game, he is already elite. Through the first 3 quarters, the production is there across the board. But in the final minutes of close games, there is a noticeable drop. Less activity, less assertiveness. Part of that is the team still figuring things out around him, and part of it is on him. He has to build the habit of taking control in those moments, hunting his spots, calling for the ball, attacking the defense instead of waiting for the game to come to him, getting to the free throw line. That is not something you are born with. It is built and trained through repetition. The second area is post-assertiveness, and this hits directly at what Shaq has been saying. And here is where the irony gets real. Wembanyama in the post is a cheat code. There is not a single player in the NBA who can guard him one-on-one down there. Not one. 7 feet 4 inches with that length, that touch, and that control. It is unfair in every sense. He can shoot over you, go around you, handle the ball like a guard, and finish through contact from angles most players cannot even attempt. But he does not go there enough when things break down. He drifts to the perimeter more than he should, especially when the offense stalls. His perimeter game is legitimate, dangerous, and part of what makes him special. But leaving easy points in the paint is something you cannot afford when the games really matter. When the playoffs hit, you have to punish those advantages every single time. So in a strange way, Shaq's criticism about shot selection, taking 10 threes when you're completely unguardable in the paint, is the one piece of advice Wembanyama should actually take and use. The third area is leadership. This one doesn't show up in the highlights, but it might matter the most. Wembanyama is the future of the Spurs for the next decade. That entire franchise is built on one of the strongest leadership cultures in all of sports. Greg Popovich set a standard in that building that still lives on today. If you are the best player in that locker room, a certain presence comes with the job. Wembanyama is naturally quiet and internal. He leads by example, not by volume, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But at this level, your voice matters too. The all-time greats made their standards clear every single night. That is something Wembanyama can build, not by changing who he is, but by expanding how he leads. Here is the bigger picture. What Wembanyama did that night drew a clear line in the sand. The idea that he disappears under pressure took a major hit. It's not completely destroyed forever, but now there is real evidence pushing back against it. In basketball conversations, these moments stack up. Every time he shows up in a high-pressure situation where people expect him to fade, that narrative gets weaker. Do it enough times and it collapses on its own. No speech needed, no argument required, just pure performance. We've seen this story before. LeBron came back from early struggles and elevated his game. Giannis took playoff failures and rebuilt his game piece by piece. Pressure, when handled the right way, doesn't break elite players. It speeds up their greatness. Shaq planted a narrative at the exact moment Wembanyama looked vulnerable. And Wembanyama answered it the only way that actually shuts a narrative down. Not with words, but with a chase-down block, a help-side rotation, and the choice to step up when everyone expected him to shrink. Conversation isn't over yet. But the first real piece of evidence against Shaq's storyline is now out there on the floor for everyone to see. Shaq questioned Wembanyama's killer instinct on national TV. The next night, Wembanyama answered with a refusal to fade when the pressure hit. No tweets, no rants, just performance. The narrative took its first real hit. Like the video, subscribe to the channel and drop your take in the comments below.